Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Leveraging Tech to Enhance Staff Communication and Elevate Your Hotel's Operations, brought to you by Stay in Touch, Revenate, and Beekeeper. I'm your host, Frigola, and I'm joined by my panel of hospitality tech leaders. First up is founder and CEO of Stay in Touch, Yas Shop. Yas has a 20-plus year track record in hotel software technology. He began Stay in Touch with a vision of reinventing the hotel PMS technology, making it simple, mobile, and transitioning the software to the cloud. Prior to Stay in Touch, Yas spent 17 years at Microsystems, Inc., now Oracle Hospitality, as a senior vice president in charge of global product development and strategy for lodging and e-commerce divisions. During his tenure, Micro's hospitality products became the global market leader, growing the company's revenues from less than $300 million to $1.1 billion. Joining us from Revenate is Senior Manager of Product and Customer Marketing, Erica Rich. Erica is the Senior Hospitality Marketing Strategist at Revenate and is responsible for maximizing customer success through the education and adoption of hotel email marketing best practices. As a developer and instructor of Revenate's email marketing certification for hoteliers, Erica has traveled around the world educating hoteliers on how to become effective email marketers. She joined the Revenate team in July 2015 and is based at the company's headquarters in San Francisco, California. And rounding out our panel is Corey McCarthy, Chief Marketing Officer at Beekeeper. Corey is an entrepreneur, marketer, and speaker. As Beekeeper's Chief Marketing Officer, Corey is charged with creating a buzz among hoteliers that relies on communication with frontline workers who are digitally difficult to reach, connect, and engage. She has served as Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Hotel Interactive, a digital media group, and spent the better part of a decade as Associate Publisher for Lodging Hospitality magazine. Corey earned her MBA from St. Mary's College of California in 2011 and currently sits on the board of directors for Leslie's Week, a stage 4 breast cancer nonprofit establishment to provide a week vacation to a family and their mother who is slipping away as a result of their terminal illness. So I want to welcome our panel, and I want to especially welcome our audience. I'll run through the agenda and we'll get started. We'll discuss how mobile technology can bolster staff communication and productivity. Our panel will then discuss bridging the gap between guest satisfaction and employee satisfaction, and also 5 ways CRM and email marketing can support operations. And before our panel leaves you, they'll give the audience 3 tips, 3 ways to best identify the right tech solutions for your property. Before we get started, I would like our audience to participate in one audience poll question. Launching it now. When looking for tech solutions for your property, what is the most important thing you consider? I'll give you guys about 45 seconds, and then I'll share the results. About 20 more seconds here. And I am closing the poll and sharing the results. When looking for tech solutions for your property, what is the most important thing you consider? 52% of you overwhelmingly said ease of use and usability. 17% said features and functionalities, and a 13% equal split between API connection integrations and service level of tech provider. And then 4% of you say price. All right. With that said, we are going to move forward to the first discussion point. Enhancing communications and productivity, how to bolster staff productivity with mobility. Yas is going to lead this discussion point.
Thanks, Ray. Good morning, everyone. Just as a quick follow-up to the poll that I just saw, interesting to see the, I guess most of you really wanting to see ease of use and usability in your next generation software. I think, we at Stay in Touch and other companies probably these days are focusing more and more on that. I think mobility, which is probably one of the topics, or is one of the topics we're talking about today, helps with that tremendously. You all have a mobile phone. You all do anything on it without being trained on it. I think that's definitely the way we want to go with software as well, and you see that more and more coming across. So I think one of the end questions is going to be what's to look for when you select a new software. Make sure definitely it's easy to use and make sure it's mobile. So if you want to go to the next slide, Free. So before I just talk a little bit about how mobility can help enhance the productivity and experience, I also wanted to run by a few statistics that we found while browsing around on the internet. Mobility is definitely a key thing. It's interesting, in my opinion, that many hotels or many operations still work the old way, desktop and paper that flies around, and then radio technology. A lot of those things are still happening. There's very few mobility going on in hospitality as it relates to hotel PMS, hotel back office software, and those kind of things. But if you look at the stats out there, some of these 4 stats, and I've got another one actually, show that if you get to mobility, you get a huge increase in productivity over a time period. You can see here the federal workers can gain 364 hours in productivity if things become more mobile. Salesforce, which is obviously a very famous cloud application, has been around for a long time, has kind of established that productivity can increase with 34% if applications become more mobile. Then the Economist did an interview and a test showing that 60% of the employees see more productivity. They believe they can see more productivity if they can do mobile. And organizations that pioneer mobile also see a 60% boost in productivity if they provide that to their staff or potentially their guests. And one that I would like to add also, and this is more from a guest point of view, there is a stat out there that basically says that 73% of the guests or customers have a more positive view of a company using mobile services than one that does not. So if you take those 5 stats, then there is a clear trend that is towards mobility. There's clear arguments that would actually benefit you going mobile. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the next few slides from a PMS point of view, how you can benefit from mobility within the PMS. Of course, the PMS traditionally is a desktop-based system. It sits in the back office. It sits at the front desk. Traditionally, that's where it sits. It cannot be moved from there, and the only way to move it from there is to print out a report and take that report to a meeting room, take it to a guest, or take it to the floor to manage, for example, housekeeping. I think that's definitely the opportunity there is to change that. The mobile PMS or PMS of the future is mostly cloud-based. It can run mostly on a tablet, or it can run on a smartphone or another smaller device. So you have the ability to really bring forward the mobility within your organization. The PMS, as we all know, is the heart of your hotel. Everything that goes in and goes out goes through that PMS. So the ability to make that mobile can only be of great benefit. This starts with the guest doing mobile check-in, but it definitely doesn't end there. It really starts also with housekeeping and being able to get mobile access to the system, or other departments to get mobile access to the system. It will eliminate, if you go mobile, it will eliminate pen and paper. Housekeeping can basically turn their rooms faster around. The housekeeping list that the housekeeper is walking around with is always up to date because it's on his or her smartphone. Staying a little bit focused on housekeeping, instant room updates happen. Occupancy is always aware to everybody. General managers can have it on their smartphone. They always know what's going on. Their operations manager can always see what's going on in the hotel. If you are going to a room to provide a service in that room, you can look on your phone who is in that room, and you knock on that door. You can name the guest's name, which is always a good thing to tell the guest about. So all of these things become more and more available if your PMS is in a mobile format available. Guest identification also, when you knock on the door, becomes key. Instant room, queue rooms, room moves, room upsells, all these things, if everything is mobile, can happen faster and generate more benefits for the hotel. An example of that, what we see, for example, very often in our hotels that have activated mobile checkout, a lot of guests tend to use that service. As you probably all know, most hotel guests do not check out the traditional way. They just walk out the building at some time in the morning. But with mobile checkout, because it's so easy, because it's easy accessible on their phone, they do check out. And what that basically happens, that 20 to 30 or 40% of guests that actually does a checkout, what happens then is that, of course, the housekeeping team, the front office team is aware that the guest has left, and therefore the room can be cleaned faster, it can be turned around faster, and it can be given back to front office to give to the next guest also a lot faster. So mobility, I think, is key when it comes across departments, when it comes between guests and departments as well, even though that's kind of indirect. So finding a PMS that's 100% mobile, that can run on multiple devices, in my opinion, is the key for your organization to be successful in the future. Going a little bit deeper onto that conversation across departments, talked a little bit about housekeeping, the ongoing conversations there. But also, I think when you have third-party guest management applications in place, such as texting, being aware of the guest, the status of the guest, what the guest is doing, what the guest wants, all of these things become a lot easier when things are mobile. I was attending a conference last week here in DC, where we talked a little bit about personalization. Personalization in hospitality is fairly difficult because a lot of the guests that get into your hotel come in through an OTA, and the only thing you know about them is their first and their last name. So it's really hard for you to kind of extend that going forward and try to understand what else the guest want, or what the guest may have had in the past. If you have mobile devices and you allow the guest to use some of that self-service components, you can include those self-service components and those questions to the guest in the self-service check-in or check-out experience. You can learn more about the guest. That information becomes available on mobile devices of your staff members, who can then respond better and faster to these requests or these particular components the guest may have.
So let me just follow up with a question here, Jos, before we pass it over to Corey. So we talk about giving mobility and access across departments and to your guests, which means that everyone is now an active agent in the data that is then input into the PMS. But if I'm a hotelier, I don't necessarily want everyone to have the same access to all the information. So, with a PMS, a mobile PMS, how do you restrict some of that access, or can you restrict some of that access?
That's a very good question, and also a very valid point. Of course, we don't want to, not everybody needs to know everything about the guest, but I think to a large extent, there is information around the guest first name, last name, birthday, preferences, all those kind of things that are pretty common in a hotel. Everybody that works in a hotel should be aware of what particular guests want to have and don't want to have. Maybe the financials are not available to everybody. But if the hotel system is set up correctly, it has role-based features and has role-based access management, which would allow hotels to set up the mobile access in such a way that only certain staff members can see the certain things they need to see to operate and perform services to their guests. Of course, the system device, if the device get lost, normally a good system has auto logouts. Eventually, the system will log out itself, so it cannot really be taken away from somebody from the hotel. So key, I think, there is make sure that the PMS has role-based access management, and of course that access management get automatically disabled in case the device gets lost.
Awesome. All right, so we will move over to Corey, who's going to lead the next discussion point, bridging the gap between guest satisfaction and employee satisfaction. Corey?
Hi there. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Following up on Jan's comments about mobile, it's not even an argument that there are so many applications and so many opportunities for mobile within the hospitality industry. And we're going to take a look at this section of the webinar at how to interact with employees on mobile and kind of some of the lost opportunities that are presenting themselves there. First, if we take a step back and take a look at some pretty major things that are happening within the hospitality industry right now, there's massive labor shortage. And this is difficult because in the hospitality industry, we already deal with fairly high turnover rates. Right now, we're dealing with 90% turnover on top of labor shortage. I was just at the NYU Investment Conference in New York a few weeks ago, and this was the topic of conversation that almost every panel was discussing. So it's really great to see that there is an increased focus on retention within the hospitality industry. And it's funny because most hoteliers are really focused on the holy grail, which is guest satisfaction. And hoteliers are really starting to wake up to the point where we have pretty major issues, and now employee experience is the new black. Definitely something that all hoteliers are really starting to take a good hard look at. One of the things that we've seen in our business is there are a lot of antiquated bring your own device policies, and it's understandable. I think that when mobile first started making a presence in the hospitality industry, it was very social. People were, checking in on Facebook and other social sites and seen as not necessarily working. And so a lot of hotels, in order to provide a fantastic guest service, have asked their employees to put their mobile devices away. And in the old days, I think that I definitely agree with that call. However, because of the tight labor shortage, it's interesting. If you take a look at the largest concentration of hotel workers, it's usually in the housekeeping department. And if you take a look specifically at the housekeeping department, it's overwhelmingly females, and there are a lot of mothers within the ranks. As a mother myself, I can see a shift that has happened over time, whereas not having access to my mobile device to have access to my child or my family is not negotiable. And we have heard in several cases that employees are choosing not to work for particular hotel chains or hoteliers who have very strict or antiquated bring your own device policies. And so we're at a day and age where I think that we've kind of come full circle, and employees and I think society is a little bit better about the boundaries between, personal usage and work usage of their personal devices at the workplace. And so I think that it's definitely time for hoteliers to start reassessing their BYOD policies and making it a little bit more family friendly in order to attract labor, especially in some of the major markets. And also it opens up a fantastic opportunity for them to take advantage of the devices as a communication channel that was previously not accessible to them. One of the things that we've noticed in our research is that relationships with coworkers matter, and for the employees on the property level, if you take a look at the hospitality operations, it's very distributed. You've got every corner of the hotel with employees, not so often that they're speaking together. So if there is a way to bring them together, those relationships are found to be one of the key things that make people enjoy waking up, enjoy going to work, and have a positive outlook on their work experience. And then, when you take a look at it, everything always points back to good communication, and good communication happens to go a long way. And so these are just a few of the things that hoteliers need to be thinking about as it relates to our high turnover within the industry and the labor shortage that we're dealing with right now. Next slide, please. If you take a look at disconnected employees, there's an issue. So right now, 80% of our hotel workers don't have email addresses, nor do they have computers. And so if we want to do some of the great things that are going to improve retention, we need to be able to connect with them first. And so by easing up on the BYOD policies and allowing workers to use their own devices in order to communicate not only with the management, but within their departments, it's going to make life a lot easier. In fact, when we're talking about mobile specifically, most apps are going to require some sort of email address, which makes it challenging to insert an app into a hospitality industry and allow use across the board. What else is happening is kind of back to the previous slide, the point about workers are really looking for a connection, and workers are really looking to, have a relationship with their coworkers, but they're also looking to do good work. And what we found, almost kind of staggeringly, is most of the clients that we're working with have had some sort of unofficial WhatsApp groups or a series of WhatsApp groups as a workaround. And this is something that they have, on their own goodwill, tried to install into their departments or into the organizations, because there hasn't been an official form of communication other than the old school walkie-talkies, which aren't always the most effective, in order to get done what they need to get done. Now, the WhatsApp groups pose a number of different challenges. First off, I know that we've all been hearing a lot about GDPR lately, but WhatsApp is not GDPR compliant, and there is the potential for personal data of the guests, especially European guests traveling to the US, to be shared over those channels. Offboarding is also another major issue. Management of those various and fragmented WhatsApp groups are incredibly challenging, because when an employee quits or is fired, to go through and clean up their access to those WhatsApp groups is sometimes nearly impossible, making WhatsApp definitely not a scalable solution, and a workaround only because the hotel has not been providing appropriate communication channels for employees to engage with. Next slide, please. So when we talk about the employee experience and technology, it's really interesting how we've also come full circle with technology, because we have now been so lucky and fortunate enough to create technology that actually helps us enhance our human interactions, which is at the heart of the hospitality industry when it comes to guest-facing interactions and, of course, employee-facing interactions. So the one thing that guest communication over mobile devices allows us to do is it allows access for everybody. There are platforms out there like Beekeeper, of course, that don't require email addresses to sign in and are very simple and easy to use, that have very little uptime and very little learning curve, because they already resemble a lot of the social platforms that people are using in their personal lives. And by allowing access to everybody, it's interesting, we've been finding that the level of connectivity goes through the roof. We have a hotel, we're in the Hotel Anatole down in Dallas, and the housekeeping department is very large, and they have a lot of housekeepers that speak various languages. There's one in particular that speaks Vietnamese, and the shift manager obviously doesn't speak Vietnamese, and so she would have to come in and check her schedule every week. And what the hotel staff didn't realize is that she was traveling 1 hour one way just to check her schedule every week. So that was 2 hours out of her personal life that she had to spend away from her family and find childcare to supplement for, just to check her schedule. And so when she found that she could not only check her schedule, but send a message with, the translation mode and request shift swaps, she cried tears of joy, because this was a major thing in her life that was resolved by something seemingly so simple. And it's pretty amazing too, once you see a communication platform that's plugged into a hotel, all of the personalities that the general managers don't necessarily get to see on a daily basis really come alive and allow for that human connection to happen at the staff level, which raises the overall culture and attitude at the hotel, which is pretty amazing to see. So one of our recommendations is very strongly to update your BYOD policy. There are a lot of different resources to go through to make sure that you're still in line with labor issues, but are really being sensitive to employees' needs both at work and, that in case of emergencies, they do need to have access to the outside world. And by providing a secure communication option, the really great thing is we get rid of the risk that the unauthorized WhatsApp groups provide. And by centralizing all of the communication, it's really wonderful, because hoteliers are able to harness all of that data and gain insights as to what's actually happening at the property level, because all of the communication is centralized, making it easier to speak with the entire property, or if it's a management company, all of the general managers within the portfolio. So the ease of communication is significantly greater. And of course, going back to those workplace connections, and I think in the same breath, celebrating success is one of those things that you're able to do in real time to showcase to everybody an absolute rock star who deserves that recognition, which goes a long way. And when we're taking a look at turnover, we've seen a number of the hotels who've implemented a communication platform see actually significant reduce in turnover, which is ends up being a bottom line savings to a hotel, which is really neat to see, business wins on top of really kind of human and personal wins as well. From an operational perspective, the open communication allows the entire property brand or management company to align in real time, which when it comes to crisis management or disasters, absolutely invaluable. Our platform was used significantly during the series of hurricanes that hit South Florida last year. And we're in some cases the only channel of communication that was operational. So if you have a well planned out crisis communication strategy, the cool thing with the communication platforms that are out there today is there's a level of automation available that makes it easy to precede a lot of recurring messages, or in this case, crisis messages that can be sent out to a specific group or the entire organization at a push of the button. What's really great about that too is this is an industry where there's a lot of compliance. And so with a centralized and official communication channel, a lot of the messaging that needs to be sent out that you need official signatures for to track compliance can be done through these communication channels and have a stamped red receipt or a confirmation. So you can also keep track of not only who's officially signed that they have read and have seen the communication, but then also track to see who hasn't received it to follow up with those people, either again over the communication channel or in person. And interestingly, when we talk about technology bringing back that human connection, employees are really the base of it all. And investing significantly in your employees has a direct impact and a direct correlation to the happiness of your guests, because we can do a lot of really fantastic things online and digitally to create a fantastic guest experience before that guest ever walks on site. But it's that experience that happens actually at the property that really makes or breaks a guest's stay. And that experience is fairly dependent on their human interactions that they experience as soon as they walk in the door. And if you set your employees up for success right out of the gate so that they're happy, they're healthy, they are engaged and loyal to you and your hotel, you stand a much better chance of delighting a guest than if we, keep employees in the dark and let them live with this uncertainty of exactly what's going to be happening at the property each day. The information sharing is fantastic. We have a case at Mandarin Oriental where there was a woman who forgot her book, and the bell captain on duty at the time had this lovely conversation with the woman, and she was, really bummed out that she, didn't have her book. So as soon as the conversation ended, the bell captain was able to text somebody at the front office to have that copy of the book ordered and sent up to her room for her. And it's those little touches that, without an easy way to communicate, really, we don't have the opportunity to follow up on, we don't have the opportunity to make happen. So it's those little touches that add up and really start to make the difference between good guest experience and excellent guest experience. And also with the ability to communicate, we can share more and more of these stories and illuminate the best practices that are happening at the property level every day and bring those to the forefront. And also recognize, of course, the high achievers, which all of us worked very hard. And in most cases, we have this large contingent of hotel workers who don't get to hear every day how well they're doing. And so it's those little things that, we don't necessarily put at the forefront that do add up, and they really do make a difference. And it's really fun to see how a property really transforms once you shine a light and once you open up communication within the entire organization. So in the future, right now, we have a really great opportunity with the handheld devices and the mobile devices that our employees are bringing in to connect with them on a communication level. And so right now we're talking, part culture and employee experience, but then part operational and having the ability to make work happen better. In the future, one of the things that I really urge all hoteliers to take a look at is platforms with an open API, because once all of the platforms start to talk together, we're able to help scale a tech stack. So of course, Beekeeper has an open API, and theoretically you can integrate any other system on the property level that has an open API through the Beekeeper platform. And what's really great about that is the Beekeeper platform doesn't require an email address, and so you can leverage that to deliver technology into the hands of people who wouldn't necessarily have had access to the technology before. Of course, you can gate and decide who gets access to what parts of which systems at which time, but I think that this is where the future of technology is going, and so I think that it's going to be important that as hoteliers, we're all looking for open source systems that will be able to integrate with one another. So if not now, in the future, you have the ability to grow and scale your tech stack. And one of the very important things to take a look at right now is ISO certification, which almost assumes a GDPR compliance, but GDPR compliance is definitely at the forefront. When it comes to a communication platform, it's very, very important, because in order to maintain GDPR compliance as a hotel, every single piece of technology that you bring into your ecosystem also needs to be GDPR compliant as well. And so any hotels out there with a WhatsApp group is already not in compliance, just for the fact that WhatsApp is not GDPR compliant. So that's one of the other questions that I would certainly ask any technology vendor that you're looking to work with.
All right, well, thank you so much. I think I'll just jump in. This is Erica with Revenate. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and instead of talking about staff-to-staff communication, I thought it'd be fun to talk about staff-to-guest communication. So if we can get to the next slide. So, you know, one thing that I want to start off by saying is that your staff has so much extraordinary access to the guest. And I know for you to stay competitive and to really make sure that you boost repeat business, it's really important that you treat every single guest as an individual. And I know when we talk a lot about email marketing, it's thought of as just that belongs in the marketing department. They'll handle those types of communications. And I want to talk a little bit more about how actually email marketing could really be more about email operations. This is just, you know, a quick screenshot of what a CRM guest profile could look like. This is from our system. Obviously, there's a lot of systems out there that do it differently, but you have a lot of information on the guest. They were able to collect from PMSs like Stay in Touch that provide you with really detailed information on how to best service and communicate with that guest. So here you'll see some examples of, you know, stay history, type of engagement they've had with past campaigns, even how they responded. Were they a net promoter of your property? Were they a detractor? And obviously, based on one of those two things, you might treat them a little bit differently. If they were a detractor and they came back, well, you really want to make sure that you wow them with some white glove service. Moving on. So once you have this really terrific information on these guests, you can actually build what we call smart segments. So you can figure out exactly how you want to speak to each individual group. Now, from an operational standpoint, perhaps you actually want to be able to communicate with everybody who is on property at that very moment. Or perhaps you want to actually reach out to everyone who is arriving. Who are all of my guests that are arriving today? Or perhaps there's some kind of communication that you want to send to those guests who are staying on property during a specific time. So because you have a platform that actually integrates with Stay in Touch, you're able to actually aggregate these guests and put them in their own groups so you can make sure you're communicating to the right folks. Next slide, please. So what are some ways that you can actually use email marketing to communicate to guests to ensure they're going to have a really great stay and that they have all the information they need to make it a great stay? So I promised 5 examples. We'll start with number 1, and that, of course, is the pre-arrival letter. And I hope everybody on this call is sending out a pre-arrival. If you're not, I definitely absolutely recommend it. That should be the first thing that you do on your to-do list. Pre-arrivals are fantastic, and we know that the audience loves to receive them because they have an open rate of 57% on average. This is also the opportunity that you have to get them to really enhance their stay. So what are those different areas on property that you're looking to drive guests to, whether it's the restaurant, the spa? It's obviously important that you keep, all of your staff very busy in those different revenue centers. So this is the opportunity for you to drive reservations, or at least share with them what they can do while they're on property. And you can actually also give them the opportunity to upgrade their stay or enhance their stay through amenity add-ons and also room category upgrades. Most importantly, this really does a great job of reducing the wait time at the front desk, at the concierge. If they get all the information that they need before they check in, that will be, less questions for the staff at check-in. Next slide. And then I can't tell you how many times I've checked into a hotel and I'm still getting a piece of paper with all the information that's going on property. And I can only imagine how much work that takes on the back end to write the letter, make the photocopies, stuff the envelopes or the key packet inserts, whatever the case may be, all the paper cuts that come because of it. It doesn't have to be that cumbersome. Instead, you can actually set it up so an on-property welcome note goes out to that guest at the time of check-in, which is welcoming them to the property and then providing them with all the things that they can do while they're there. But also, how can you help? One of the best things about these welcome notes is it gives you the chance to say, should you need anything to make your stay more comfortable, please reach out to so-and-so. And that's, of course, a great way to get in front of what could be a negative review or a bad experience, but now they know exactly who they should be reaching out to. It's also another chance, again, to provide any extra information they need to make their stay more comfortable. Again, we know that guests love to receive these because they do receive a 50% open rates. Next slide. This is an example of a weekly activity newsletter that one of our hotels sends out. And this is when you would use, anyone who's going to be on property from this day to this day, what are all the events that are going on? Again, I know we do such a great job on property of maybe putting up a flyer or a poster, but wouldn't it be great to actually have something land in the inbox that shares with guests all the wonderful activities and events that they can take advantage of while they're on property? And it certainly, eliminates the need for printing out all those flyers, making sure that they're going out to every guest as they check in. So it's really just a great way to streamline some operations. Number 4. In-house promotions is another really strong way to get guests to where they need to be. So if you're having some sort of down period at maybe the spa or the restaurant, for some reason it's just really extra slow, what can you do to communicate to guests so that they actually go there and help, out with some of that low demand? So this is an example of, today only, book your spa treatment, get this great offer. It obviously provides tremendous value to the guest, but it also helps you drive demand over, low demand times, of course, helping your staff exponentially. And these get a huge open rate, 62%. And that brings us to number 5. Sometimes things don't always go the way you want to, right? Maybe there's road closures, or you have to close your pool down. Maybe there's a fire alarm, fire drill. So another way to easily communicate with guests, as opposed to picking up the phone and calling every single room, letting them know something, you can easily send them an email. So this is an example of a customer who had to share that, they're closing their pool for a private event. So this went out to all the guests who were on property, or even those who were checking in over that time, and basically said, just so you know, this is going to be closed over this day. So once again, just another really clean, clear way to streamline communications, make the jobs of your operational team that much easier and more efficient.
All right, thank you, Erica. I'd like to follow up here with one question that we have. Someone said, our marketing team manages email marketing, and I think they are using MailChimp. Can we still run the campaigns you mentioned?
It would be a lot harder. It would definitely be a lot harder. So, MailChimp is obviously a fantastic solution, but the downside there is obviously they don't integrate with your property management system. And really, if you want to be able to send campaigns on the fly, if you want to send to all those folks who are checking in today, or once they do check in, so it's trigger based, that is something that you're going to have to connect with your PMS in order to do that type of targeting.
Awesome. All right, we will move forward to our last discussion point, and each of our presenters will give their take here. 3 ways to best identify the right tech solutions for your property. Josh, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I think we talked about it probably already throughout the session quite a bit. Of course, the solution has to be definitely in the cloud. So to identify that is verify and ask that question: is the solution in the cloud? Is it a true cloud solution? Do you have to worry about anything? If anything has to be installed on the property? If nothing has to be installed on the property and is provided through URLs, potentially a cloud solution, that would be one. Second one, also mentioned by the Beekeeper also, is integration. You definitely want to make sure that the system can integrate to many different things in order for you to satisfy the needs that you may have. Every hotel system that's out there cannot satisfy everything you need, so you need to make sure that we can complement those with 2 integrations. Lastly, I think it came out of the poll, you want to make sure it's very easy and simple to use. I think that's definitely core, at least from our point of view at Stay in Touch, to make sure that we build a solution very simple and easy to use, because it will make training go a lot faster. It will reduce the cost of training. It will also probably make the employees a lot more happier and keep them on the right place to keep going with the company.
Awesome. Corey?
To be honest, I think that all of my points were covered. So thank you, Jens, or thank you, Jan.
Okay, so Erica?
Yeah, all extremely important. Also, ease of use that, our audience has voted for is, of course, probably the #1 thing. But one thing you definitely want to look out for is pace of innovation. How quickly is that platform evolving? I think we can all agree that in the hospitality space, sometimes technology doesn't evolve quite as quickly as we would like to. Sometimes you're stuck with a little bit of some legacy technology. It can be very cumbersome. It is hard to use. So I definitely recommend, choosing a platform that is constantly evolving. We're releasing new functionality and enhancements every 2 weeks. Technology is moving fast. You're moving fast. Your goals are changing rapidly. The industry is changing. You have to make sure you're working with a platform that keeps up with all those different dynamic conditions. And of course, the only way that's done is through customer feedback. So how much of a partner is this technology platform going to be to you? How much are they listening to the industry? Are they industry specific? Everything that we're constantly rolling out is because we work so closely with our customers and we're really trying to build something that is tailored to their needs. And that's really what you're looking for in a technology partner, especially for hospitality, which is so nuanced. Do they understand what your challenge points are, and how quickly are they willing to adapt and to enhance in order to meet your needs?
Awesome. All great points by our panel. I do want to now take the opportunity to turn things over to our audience. And I do encourage you guys to send in any questions that you have. We have a few here already. So the first one I'll address to you, Erica. I love the idea of having our front of house staff sending communication directly to guests, but I'm afraid they don't have quite the right skill set to make sure they go out every time in a professional and on-brand way. Is there anything I can do to place some controls around this?
It's a great question, and someone who lived my life always managing the marketing for hotels, I can certainly appreciate that, because we were always nervous about what type of flyers were going to end up in the check presenters in the restaurants if we didn't have our hands all over it. Fortunately, with email, it's a really easy thing to keep guardrails around. You should work with a platform that creates templates. So the templates can be designed by marketing, and then when it's time for operations to send something out, maybe they just have to tweak a few words. They can even kick it back over to marketing, who can give their approval. Email marketing makes it really easy to send tests, so you can make sure that everyone sees it who needs to. You definitely want to have a few eyes on any communication that you send out, just to eliminate the risk of sending something out with any errors in it. But again, because it is templated and you just basically have to just send, change a few words, it's pretty risk-free. but always, have your marketing team look at it just to make sure it's all looking good.
Awesome. And Corey, this one's for you. Our employees speak a lot of different languages. How do you get over the language barrier so everyone is on the same page?
Inline translations. Our device, and our platform, and a lot of others have inline translations built in. So we cover, I think, over 27 different languages, which solves for a lot of the communication barriers that are happening at just about every hotel by now.
All right, this one's for you, Yas. How long does it typically take to train staff on a mobile PMS, and how does that affect the bottom line?
I think that depends on the type of staff that's being trained. So we're focused on the front desk and housekeeping. It's basically a matter of minutes, at least in our case. The system has been designed for people that understand the hotel, can pick up a tablet and basically check in, check out, and make a reservation on that tablet. Housekeeping is also very easy to use. It's colored, coded in many cases, and everything is clear on the screen. So we don't use any codes or that kind of stuff. So I think operational staff can be trained in a matter of minutes, maybe 10, 15 to half an hour, depending on everything what they need to learn. So pretty quick. That obviously has a great effect on the bottom line because previously the older systems that are out there, they require days or weeks of training and retraining on an ongoing basis.
All right, and this is a question I'll address to each of our presenters. What does the future of technology look like in hospitality? And Corey, you can go first.
Sure, I think that the future of technology in hospitality is open source and fully connected. I think that each of the systems will be able to talk with one another. Each of the systems will be able to easily fit within an organization and scale. I think that the systems will also take advantage of mobile devices, whether it's the employee's mobile device or one that is provided by the property. I think that we're moving into an age where technology will be a lot more fluid and definitely a lot more interconnected.
Else?
I think for me, for us at Stay in Touch, one of the big things is what we call choice of service and integration of the guest and the staff member utilizing the hospitality platform more and more. That means basically more mobility, the guests wanting to be more controlled themselves and therefore doing more of the transactions that traditionally are done by a staff in the hotel. They do them themselves on their smartphone to provide, to receive and provide good service.
Erica?
I think it'll be really interesting to see how AI and machine learning continues to infiltrate hospitality technology, making it even more personal, more customized. I think in general, that's how consumers are getting their information these days. You log on to Netflix and everything has been completely tailored and customized to your, previous watching habits. I think it should be no different within hospitality. The types of packages, offers, landing pages that you're coming to, the ads that you're seeing, they should all be based on where you like to go, how you like to travel, what you like to do when you are traveling, and that'll be really interesting to see.
All right, and to our last two questions from our audience, one is, what does each solution cost? And the other one is, are you guys going to receive the presentation via email? To the latter, yes, you will receive all of the assets within 24 hours. And to the former, I am pretty sure all of these solutions are component-based, so we will have someone reach out to you directly to speak more about cost. All right, anybody have anything else they want to share? All good? All right. Thank you again to our audience for joining us and sticking with us the whole way through. And I want to thank our panelists for all the great insight. Join us next time. You guys have a good day.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.